Yes, team, how are we? Welcome back to another episode of the High Performance Coach podcast. I hope all is well in your world. And if you haven't done so already, then I highly recommend that you go back and you listen to last week's episode where I talked about how you can build an industry-leading coaching program. What are the key fundamentals and principles you now need to have in place? Because I know that that's going to be a great foundation from which today's episode is going to be built upon. Today, I'm joined by the incredible Melissa Haywood, who is one of our phenomenal coaches inside the High Performance Coach. She's been on her own incredible journey, has a phenomenal story, and has been a huge kind of lighthouse North Star, is an incredible leader and somebody that we have an enormous amount of respect and also love for. So I wanted to be able to bring her onto the podcast and give her the platform to be able to share some insights, some snapshots, her story, and also hopefully present and provide some lessons as well, which is going to be absolutely incredible. So Mel, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. I just want to apologise in advance if anyone hears my 3-year-old screaming downstairs throughout this. Hopefully he's being kept entertained. But no, that is just what my life is like sometimes. But yes, I am good. I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Absolutely amazing. So let's take a deep dive. Let's go upstream. What is it that we now need to know about kind of Mel and her story to now be able to understand like why you do what you do today? Take me back.
Way back. So I suppose like my career and my journey as an adult began when I was 18 years old and I joined the military. I had always wanted to be in the army. I have no idea where it sort of came from, but my dad always tells people this story that when I was 5, I was watching the Edinburgh Tattoo or something along those lines on the TV. And I said to my dad, I want to be a soldier. And he said, you're not old enough just yet. And apparently I threw an absolute bitch fit and I was screaming on the floor saying, I want to be a soldier. And just for as long as I can remember, a career within the army was something that I wanted to do. When I was at school, it was always like, right, when I'm 16, I'm going to join the army. My parents didn't let me join at 16. They said you can join at 18 because obviously you need parental permission at 16. So I had to wait until I was 18. But that was just always in my head. And, throughout all of my teens, it was always about getting fit because I wanted to join the army. I was always, I went to the gym when I was like 14, 15 with my dad and started trying to learn how to do pull-ups and stuff like that. So that was always going to be my career no matter what. There was never anything else that sort of entered my brain. So 18, I joined the army and I had, an amazing career. I served with 2 different infantry battalions. We went to Iraq. We had our battalion go to Afghan and I absolutely loved it. I really loved my time in the army. But when I was I specifically remember the moment I was in Canada on exercise, and just before we were about to deploy out onto the plane for like 4 weeks, just living in holes and stuff, I remember buying Muscle and Fitness, hers, and Muscle RX, the female version. And inside the magazine, there were people like Nicole Wilkins, who was Miss Figure Olympia, and Amanda Latona, who was a bikini Olympian. And I just thought, wow, like I was fit because I was in the military, but this was like a whole different level of aesthetics. They looked so fit, so healthy, like shoulders, and they weight trained. And being in the army, we did a lot of, circuits and runs and stuff, but we didn't weight train. Anyway, as soon as I got back from Canada off, those 4 weeks of that exercise, I hit the gym. I used a sample like training plan and I was like, this is it. This is my passion. And everything just sort of flew from there, really. I started getting into competing. I competed in the IFBB. I earned my IFBB Pro card, stepped up to figure, competed in the US, like placed, and I just had this amazing career competing. And that is when I knew that that's where my passions were, and I would always get people messaging me on Instagram saying, are you a coach? Can you train me? Obviously I was in the military at the time and we're not allowed second jobs and stuff. And I was like, oh, no, because I'm still in the army. But then I knew that that was my passion. I wanted to have a new career. So after 9 years in the military, I took that leap of faith, which was huge because in the army, you're quite safe. Like you have your set job, you have your army pension, and all of this like safety net and this bubble. Leaving to become an online coach in 2015 was a huge leap of faith because online coaching wasn't really so much of a thing back then, as you will know. And I just had to go for it because I just thought, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. This is where my passion lies. I know I can help people. So I left my stable career, started to become an online coach. Was still competing at the time. I was working with Jamie Alderton. and we worked together in the Grenade Fit gym, and I was sponsored by Grenade, and my whole career niche, all of the ladies I worked with were ladies in their early 20s, competitors. You know, I'd be going here, there, and everywhere doing shows with my clients and stuff. But then back in 2018, I decided I'm done. I hung up my sparkly heels and I thought, shit, I'm not getting any younger. You know, I'm in my 30s now. I do want to start a family. So I had to make that decision that competing now has to stop. I need to get my hormones back in check. I need to get my body sorted, and I want to start a family. And luckily and very thankfully, we did sort of fall pregnant. And then the next phase of my life and my journey started, and I became a mum right before lockdown. So that was great fun. And my life has pretty much been a whirlwind since. Like, my whole niche and everybody that I work with and my whole business, just my whole identity, everything has taken a massive flip and change since that moment. I mean, obviously now I don't work with competitors. Now I don't work with ladies in their 20s. I now have this really amazing niche of ladies that I work with that are mums that struggle with finding their own identity after that identity loss, that struggle with the juggle of life and responsibilities, but still want to do things for themselves. And that's very much where I was when I first became a mum. It affected me a lot more than I imagined it would. And I love to help them juggle everything so that they still have that time for themselves. And so over the last sort of, I would say only really over the last 12 months, I've solidified that. I was still very much in a place of not quite knowing where I fit and still clinging on to my old identity, just as, you know, I didn't want to let it go, but actually stepping into who I am now has been the best thing ever for me personally, and also for my business as well.
I absolutely love that. Take me back to the military. What would you say have been some of the biggest kind of like lessons, or what are the things that really kind of stand out for you the most that you kind of almost still carry forward with you now, that were kind of like ingrained and or like behaviors, disciplines, or like leadership lessons that you now took that you think have shaped and molded so much of like you and now why you do what you do?
I think the biggest lesson I learned from the military is just to know that shit times don't last. Because I was just in so many situations that were really, really crap. You know, Iraq was not the best time of my life ever. And even, you know, being in a hole, I just remember being in Canada, it was absolutely fucking freezing, excuse my French. And I just remember lying there in this hole that was frozen, thinking, and I had a big Fijian lad, Barley, like right next to me, and I was just like huddled up to him, just trying to like share human bodily warmth. And I was like, this is shit. This is really crap. Like, what am I doing? Why am I here? And I remember contemplating my whole army career, what I was doing. But you laugh about those times now because it was really, really shit. But you look back and you think, oh my God. But I think the biggest thing I learned from my military career is just knowing that rubbish times don't last, and you just have to persevere through them, because that's not going to be your life. I wasn't going to be in a hole in Canada for the whole of my life. I just had to get through that exercise, and then we were going to be back in the warmth a few weeks later, you know. So it's just that enduring hard times because you know they're not going to last. I think that was the biggest lesson that I took from my military career, and just knowing that if you do continue to work hard, whatever it is that you want, you're going to get. I mean, I failed my army entrance tests twice. I was so rubbish at running. I really tried, God loves a triter, but I couldn't pass my 1.5 mile test. So I failed that the first time. And then the second time I failed like a jerry can grip test. But I was like, right, I'm still going to keep going because I really, really want this. And so then the third time I passed all of my entrance tests. And in basic training, you know, it's like, it's rubbish when you're getting shouted at people, when you're having to run around in all of your respirator kit and you literally feel like you're going to throw up. But it doesn't last. And the good times are at the end. You just need to keep going. That's the biggest thing I took from that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I heard on a podcast the other day, somebody say that like, if you have big goals, going through like hard and challenging times is like a prerequisite of success. And it's like easy times don't make kind of hard people. And it seems as though like the journey that you've now been on and the evolution and also the identity shifts that you've now been through, like will have obviously now led to almost like a shedding of a skin, and also now being able to be okay with like letting go and having the confidence and the trust in yourself to then be able to almost like step into that kind of like new domain and that new door. So give me a little bit more in terms of like, the identity shifts that you've now been through, which one do you think was probably the hardest or most challenging that you faced? Was it the military to the bodybuilding? Was the bodybuilding then obviously into the kind of the coaching of the bodybuilders, or now actually then becoming a mum? Which one do you think stands out and or was kind of the hardest for you?
I would definitely say leaving my bodybuilder identity behind and stepping into my new role of being a mum and letting go of something that had just been competing was the biggest part of my life for 9 years. If I wasn't getting ready for a show in terms of the prep to lean down to get on stage, I was getting ready for it by building muscle. So I would have like on season, my on season and off season, and it was who I was on social media. I was Melissa Haywood IFBB Pro. That was my name on there, and it was who I was. That was it. Like, I was a competitor, and my whole life revolved around it. And it had done for so long. And my whole like routine, like going to the gym all the time, like everything, living out of Tupperware boxes, my whole life was that. And then obviously I decided to give it all up, and then becoming this new person that didn't have the same structure, didn't have the same routine, didn't really, it sounds awful, but I didn't really have any goals. Because I got pregnant, and my goal was, I had a high risk pregnancy, so my goal was to get through that pregnancy safely. And then obviously I had my little boy, and you can't plan around newborns. You can't have a structure. You can try as much as you want, but maybe some babies are easier than others. But it was just shedding that part of me that I loved. I loved the fact that I was disciplined. I loved the fact that I had got to pro status, and it had took me a long time to get to that point, and it was something I felt incredibly proud of. And then all of a sudden I was just Melissa Haywood, not IFBB Pro anymore, something that I had really loved so much. That was the hardest part, because I was clinging on to it because I still wanted to be that person, but I couldn't. So I had those like conflicts within myself that I wanted to be that person. I couldn't. That wasn't who I was anymore. I probably wasn't going to ever go back to it. And so it was like, who am I? What do I do? Am I even relevant on social media anymore? Are people even interested in what I have to say now that I'm not a pro? And it was just a really strange time to go through, and a lot of confusion, a lot of pressure, a lot of sleep deprivation, and just figuring out who I was away from competing. Because that wasn't everything about me, but it had become everything about me, if that makes sense. So I had to figure out who I was away from that now.
Yeah, I can appreciate and relate to that so much. I remember when I competed and or just really kind of became known as like the physique guy initially. It's almost like your whole self-worth identity has been wrapped up in almost like the way in which you now look. And I'll speak for myself, but I was then validated by others, by people telling me how good I looked. And then if people weren't doing that, and or I wasn't then quote unquote like in season and in shape, it was almost then, well, again, like my self-worth was then massively impacted, because ultimately I felt as though that I was validated by those comments, compliments, etc. And I was constantly almost then on this like hamster wheel all the time. And then that obviously led to basically, me feeling so lost, empty, and also losing myself, because I was like, I felt as though the only thing that people really kind of liked, valued, and or wanted to be coached by me was because of the way in which I looked, rather than because of who I was. But that was because not them, it was me, and the trust and the confidence I'd almost lost in myself, and the story that I told myself.
Yeah, completely. And it's like when you're in prep and you're posting your weekly progress pictures, this is how I look this week. I've lost this. This is, you get so many people just going, oh my God, you look incredible. You're going to kill it on stage. Like you say, your whole identity gets wrapped up in that, that validation from others. And then to step away from that, I was like, because you then think, well, I don't need strangers to compliment me for me to feel good. But because that's been how things have been for so long, it's really hard to step away from that. And like you, like my whole identity and self-worth was just surrounded by the stage, competing, how I looked, people giving me compliments, people saying, oh, you've got so much discipline, I admire you, and putting you on this pedestal. It sounds really, really vain, but it does become who you are. And then you don't do it anymore, and you're like, who the hell am I? Like, what am I even interesting anymore? What have I got to offer?
Yeah, you almost feel like you become a puppet, and it's almost like you're then doing it because you're almost thinking that you're trying to do it to please others. The other people don't give a shit, but in your head, you think that they do, and then you're almost like behaving out of like what these people want me to do because you don't feel as though you've got anything like behind you, because that's become so much of you. So out of curiosity, like what do you think have been the things that have really driven you? Because to go into the military, to do what you've done for the 9 years that you did it in, and then obviously for you to step into bodybuilding and to the level that you have done. So there's a huge amount of sacrifice, discipline, compromise, and also like focus, and also a degree of like selfishness as well. In order for you to have that laser focus in terms of this is what I'm working towards. Like, what do you think? Like, what's made you you? What has been the driving force like behind you operating in that manner, do you think?
I think I just like to see where I can push myself, what it is that I can achieve, to do things that normally when I first set out doing something I think is impossible. To prove it's almost sometimes like to prove myself wrong. And I think it sounds awful, but I don't think I like originally, like when it came to competing and joining the army, I don't think I liked the idea of just being normal. I think I wanted to be something that was different, something that perhaps some other people can't do, or whether they can't, or whether they don't want to. I think for me it was like, I used to think that the women that were in the army, that, you know, I just thought they were incredible. I thought, you absolute machines, you are the tits. And then when I would see people like Nicole Wilkins on stage, I think, wow, how do you do that? I could never be like that. And I'm like, but then there's always that part of me that's like, why not? Challenge yourself, try it. And so I think I just didn't want to settle for being normal. I've always wanted to try and challenge myself and to accomplish things that even in my own head I don't think are doable to start with. But I think what you always say is like, confidence needs evidence. So the more you sort of keep going, the more confident you feel. And then you visualize, actually, oh, maybe I can do this. And visualization was always something that I've used a lot. I always used to visualize myself at my pass out parade and my family being there watching me. I would always, you know, when I'm sat there starving, hungry, and it's like 6 o'clock in the evening, I've got no more calories left for the rest of the day, I would sit there on the sofa and visualize being on stage and the smell of the tan and what my, you know, the sparkles on my bikini and how I would pose. And so visualization and having that emotional connection to my goals always used to really help. But yeah, I think it was just that I knew that there was something in me that could do something a little bit special, and I just wanted to explore that. And I've always wanted to explore that. Which is why I think when I became a mum, I struggled so much, because in my head, I wasn't doing something special. I wasn't reaching for the next challenge. It was just, let's be a mum and survive.
And again, I love the honesty. And so with regards to obviously like the shift into mum and then losing almost that identity in the bodybuilder and like Melissa Haywood, IFBB Pro. And again, I think I said to you, we had a conversation not too long ago, and I was like not in a weird way, but I followed you for a long period of time and used to watch your journey and story. And then when you were with like Jamie and did everything else, I was like, again, like absolutely incredible. So for us to now be like sat having this conversation, it's absolutely amazing, because I feel like I've almost like watched as like a stamp, like somebody that's almost like being a bystander in the process, which has been brilliant. So when you did step into the mum, you had to let go of the bodybuilding side of things. Like, what do you think has been anchors and or things that have really helped and supported you with that transition, shift and process?
I think really, I mean, when you have a child, you love them more than anything in the world. And so for me personally, it was always like, I want to do my best for him. I want to make sure I am providing for him. I want to make sure that I'm showing up for him. And so what's really helped me to pull myself out of a hole a few times during my like journey of being a mum is just knowing that if I'm not at my best, then I'm not at my best for him. So it's almost like I guilt trip myself occasionally. And it's like, if you can't do it for yourself, do it for him. If you can't get your shit in order for yourself, do it for him. And so there's always that extra little bit of motivation that whatever I do is so that I can be my best and provide as much as I can for my little boy. But making sure that I'm looking after myself, even, you know, I have had some times where I felt in a little bit of a low state during my journey as a mum over the last few years, but I've always managed to pull myself out, because I make sure that, you know, actually, because I'm quite self-aware, you know, I'm aware when I'm sinking into a little bit of a hole, when I'm not following through with the habits that I should be, when my mood is low, when my patience is low, when I'm feeling frustrated. I'm aware of those those moods that I can have. And I'm like, okay, what am I not doing that's making me feel this way? Okay, you're not getting out for enough fresh air. You are not going to the gym enough. You've started eating shit and snacking too much. And so having that level of self-awareness to pull myself out before things get too bad has always been something that's helped me. And I don't know if that is obviously stemming from my background as well, but trying to have a routine as much as possible since Jack has got a little bit older has been a massive help. And also surrounding myself with people that want the best for you, obviously since joining the HPC has made a massive impact, because it makes you feel supported, and that's been a big thing for me in terms of stepping into a new level of confidence and self-belief.
And what do you think was the change? So obviously when we kind of had that conversation back in January, like where were you, and what do you think was what was the point you felt as though that you're at? What was the sticking point and or like the glass ceiling that you felt as though you'd reached? And then what's changed? What do you believe that you've actioned since then?
I think before I joined, I think it was like January time, I sat down, I set myself, I like to evaluate things, and I love to journal, and I like to write, and I like to think and reflect. And I reflected on the previous year, and I sort of realized that although I had made some progress within my business and a little bit of, no progress with my own physique and my own standards, I was like, I need to do something, because unless I do something, the next 12 months I am going to be in exactly the same position, and I can't afford to be in exactly the same position, because actually for a lot of this year I felt a little bit disjointed. I feel like there was more, I felt like there was more in me, but I just wasn't doing it. I felt like I was working and operating at like 60% of the capacity that I could. I knew that I could be giving more, but I just wasn't doing it. And then that pisses me off, because of the things that I've achieved in the past. It's like, why are you settling for normal? Why are you being mediocre? You know that you're capable of more. You've proved yourself in the past. You are capable of more than what you're doing right now. And so I reached this point where I was like, you either start moving forward, or that's it. Like, are you just going to stop? Because there are so many, both business wise, there are so many coaches out there, people that are leveling up consistently. And if you are not leveling up consistency, you're just going to get lost. So you either really go for it with this business and your own personal standards, and you pick up your level of motivation and drive and intention with your business and yourself, or you just might as well stop, because what's the point? You're just going to get left behind. And so I think for me, there was that point where it was like, you either stop, or you're going to have to push forward. And I said to you, I know that I'm capable of, like on our first call, I know that I'm capable of more. I'm just not doing it, and I'm getting annoyed at myself. And I think it was that self-awareness and that annoyance and that frustration that I knew I could give more, I just wasn't doing it, that made me just go, right, okay, let's go for it. And I think we all need that level of awareness where we just go, right, you're not where you want to be, and unless you pull your finger out, you're never going to get there either. There has to be that moment where you go, right, let's decide to just push forward. Otherwise the next 12 months is going to be exactly the same, and I didn't want it to be exactly the same.
I love that. And what do you think have been some of the principles that have been so key for you in that like progress over the last like 7 or 8 months?
Definitely for me, it has been raising my own personal standards. For me, a massive thing since joining the HPC was, I'm going to be honest, like having my own coach again. I had gone through, and I'm not saying we need a coach forever, but having you guys in my corner to answer my questions has been a big thing. And having Dan there to program my training so that I feel like I know exactly what I'm doing. So I know these are the sessions I'm going to hit this week. This is how I'm going to train. This is I'm going to walk into the gym with this intent. That lit a fire inside me again, and I hadn't had that fire inside me for training for a little while. I when I first spoke to Dan, it was, oh yeah, I just do it. I'll just go in the gym and I do a little bit of what I fancy. I was in good shape. I'd lost my baby weight, and I was in, baby weight. Jack was 2 at the time, 2 or 3. But I was in good shape, like decent shape for, but I actually enjoy being in better shape, and I enjoy having that fire in my belly with training. So a massive shift for me was just having you guys in my corner when it came to training as well, to reignite that fire that I had been missing since I competed, really. You know, I finished competing, lockdown hit, everyone was doing home workouts, and then, you know, I would give myself excuses as to why I wasn't going to the gym. Work's too busy, I need to do such and such with Jack. And so I knew I had to hit certain sessions, and just raising my personal standards that way made me believe in myself again, and made me show up as a better leader with my clients, because, you know, I'm there telling my clients, even if you're busy, you can still fit this in, you can still do that. But I was sometimes giving into my own excuses, and now I don't give into my own excuses, and it gives me more conviction when I speak to my clients, and, you know, I'm doing what I say I do. And that has just solidified my self-confidence when it comes to speaking to my clients. That's a massive thing. And then I suppose just having, what's the other thing? Yeah, I would say, like, the biggest thing for me has just been personal standards, raising my own personal standards, doing the do, making sure I'm organized, making sure that I follow through with what I say I'm going to do. That's been the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think that's the catalyst for everything, which is why obviously the entirety is like, get the person thriving, the people in profit follow, because we just had a conversation before this call went live, and we were just talking about how the caliber and the quality of individual that you're now connecting with is almost like raising and elevating you to a higher level, because you're now going, oh, there's these like women that are now coming to me for coaching, and they are like high performers and, you know, high achievers and doing fantastic things in their own domain. And there's almost this level now where it's like, actually they're challenging you in certain ways to now be able to step up. But that's because of the aura, the energy, the confidence, the character, the certainty that you've now got in how you behave, that's now given them that lighthouse, that North Star, that's allowed them to realize, right, I need to work with this person, you know, because of the values that you now hold and how you're turning up for yourself and how you're communicating, and, you know, what it is that you now fundamentally do, because people will, of course, buy the person before they buy anything else. And I think it's that trust and that confidence that you have in you, most importantly, that is that the foundation from which everything else kind of gets built upon. And obviously, as a byproduct, the business is obviously just like exponentially increased and improved, not just in terms of like the top line numbers and all the things you now think, but I think as well, like the feeling and the confidence and the safety and the security and the certainty that you now have in terms of who you now work with, how you now coach these people, actually the way in which you now deliver your coaching program, and then also then the content and the way in which you're now turning up from a marketing perspective has been so much more, from what I can see, authentic, aligned, you, real, less forced. And doing so, that's allowed you the opportunity to bring these people closer towards you.
Yeah, exactly that. And I the thing that I did miss before when I was talking is, I'm so much more authentic in what I say. I care so much less about, sometimes if I was, you know, doing posts or speaking on Instagram, I would think, oh, maybe I can't say that. Is that the right thing to say? Maybe I shouldn't post that. Is that going to attract somebody or push them away? Whereas now I'm like, right, this is what I believe in. This is what I say. And I hold back so much less. And I was literally having a conversation with a new lady, Laurie, that has joined just before we did this. And she was saying, you know, I went through all of your social media because I followed you for years, but I went through your posts, and, you know, all of the stuff that you say is all of the struggles that we go through as women. She's like, and I love just how you are. She's like, and so I'm so excited to work with you because I feel like I know you already, even before we jumped on this call. And for me, that's the best feedback ever, because before I was working with the HPC, I was very much in that, I think I was just beige, because I was just putting out general helpful content sometimes, which doesn't really do anything, because I was scared of saying the wrong thing, or you know, I think as well, because you guys always say, like, pick your niche. I was always so scared of being so niche specific in case other people went, oh, well, I can't work with her because she doesn't work with people like me. So I was very, very vague in what I was putting out there. But now I'm like, yeah, these are the kind of ladies that I help, you know, and this is what I do. And for her to give me that feedback today was just incredible. She's like, you're authentic, you're original, love your post, you speak from the heart, like you should just, because I said to her, sometimes I struggle with marketing. She was like, you should just be who you are. She's like, because that's what's drawn me in. And she's followed me for years, since before I had my little boy, but now is the point where she wants to work with me. So Jack's 4 in October. So for the last 4 years, she's followed me on social media. Now, because of who I am and how authentic I am and the message I give across, she now wants to work with me.
Yeah, and I think there's some really, really powerful lessons in there. And I think I said this on Monday to the team. It's like, generating clients has got nothing to do with the content you post, the lead generation, and all the conversations you have. It's got everything to do with you doing that relentlessly consistently over weeks, months, and years, and being okay with waiting and being patient with that, most importantly. And that's what you've been able to do, which is, again, a credit and absolute testament to you. What and how are things changed in personal life? Because I know when we had that first call, it was like everything's so chaotic, busy, and there's so much going on. Obviously, we were living in a slightly different part of the world as well. So like, what has shifted and changed for you, and how has getting like Melissa thriving impacted everything else?
Yeah, well, I mean, we moved house, which is something I didn't think we would financially be able to do this year. I've, over the last year or so, I've wanted to move closer to my parents, but moving house, as we all know, is super expensive and a real pain in the ass. But we now are personally in a different location. We live in Cornwall. It's lovely. We're settled here. And I have a much better relationship with my time, in that before I used to feel so anxious about taking time off work. I'd say, I'll go out for the afternoon with my little boy. But in my brain, I'd be thinking, what if my clients need me? What if I go back to load of messages? And so I was never fully present because I would be worrying about work. Whereas now, like I was saying to you before we started this, like I went for two beach afternoons with my little boy last week, and there was no anxiety, there was no stress. Like I spent time at the beach, and guess what? Like the world didn't implode because I was uncontactable for an afternoon. And so I have so much more like emotional stability within myself, and I have much better boundaries. And also higher confidence in myself, because I think when we're in that place of that like scarcity mindset where what if my clients think I'm not a good coach if I don't reply back to them within 2 hours, like that used to be my mindset. Whereas now, my clients are busy as well. They might message me in the morning, they don't expect a message back straight away, and they sometimes don't message me until the evening when they finish work, the kids are in bed. And so I've just a lot more stable and less reactive to things, and that has been biggest game changer for me within my personal life. I actually take days off now. Every Sunday is like a family day, whereas before I was in that mindset of if I want my business to work, I need like relentlessly 24/7. But actually I'm so much more effective with my time now by having that time off. And so that's the biggest thing for me, being a lot more present with my little boy, having those boundaries, that emotional stability, just being less like reactive and responsive to things that happen within my business because of that level of confidence within myself.
Tell everybody what you told me that time about the emergency services that stood out to me in my mind.
Yeah, I just remember, like, I was having a conversation with my friend Claire, and we were talking about how we don't have to respond to people straight away. Like we have, like, we don't have to be the fourth or however emergency services there are. She's like, Mel, we are not the fourth emergency service. We don't come as the fourth emergency service past, after the police, the ambulance and fire. Like it's okay if you are not on the other end of your phone 24/7. And that's in our brains, that we need to respond to people within, the next second. Our clients never expect that. I don't think I've got any clients that if I don't reply back to them within 10 minutes, they're pissed off.
So, and I think that when you messaged me that, it's like, Joe, I realized one thing is like, I'm not the emergency services, so I don't need to respond at the drop of a hat. And the big lesson again for me as well is like, you almost create this expectation as well. So if you get into this way where you've got this cadence whereby it's like they send you a message, you immediately respond, they immediately respond, then you immediately respond. If you then don't do that, then you've created this expectation that you immediately respond. So if you don't, it's like, well, then that expectation is now not being met. So again, it's like even being able to have that cadence and that structure that now kind of works. And of course, like I still fall into the trap of like wanting to communicate and connect and do those things. And again, there's a time and a place, but it's also about now understanding like the cadence that you now want to have in terms of your communication with clients and being able to have those boundaries and barriers that you've put in place and saying yes to yourself so that you can say like no to other things, so that you then have the confidence and the trust and the belief in yourself that you are who you say you are, you do what you say you do, and you're now living in alignment with your values, which then gives you a different level of just trust and belief and energy and awe and certainty than when you go out to the world and what it is that you're now doing, because you're actually now backing and building, like who you are and what it is that you say that you do. And you now know that when you kind of close the door at night that, like I'm behaving in alignment with me. And that is a feeling, I think, that just carries you forward and gives you some level of like, belief that nothing else really can.
Yeah, definitely. And just having those boundaries allows you to show up better anyway. So for me, by having a Sunday off with my family, I feel refreshed. I feel so much more able to give myself to my clients on a Monday, because that's when they check in. I have so much more enthusiasm knowing that I've had a really lovely day the day before. I've switched off. I've had a good night's sleep. I've done some food prep. I'm organized, and I show up so much better as a coach and as a, just because my clients deserve to have the best of me. And that's what I think sometimes we all forget. Our clients deserve to have the best of us. They are investing in us. They want to work with us. And so for them to get the best of us, we have to make sure we're looking after ourselves. There's no, they don't want a burnt out, tired, frustrated, annoyed coach that, feels like all they do is reply back to messages 24/7. So we need to remember that they deserve the best. So actually we need to be our best. And these clients that invest financially, emotionally, physically into us, they deserve for us to give them the best that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely love that. And I think that's so powerful. And you had obviously a success session inside the High Performance Coach a few weeks ago, just demonstrating obviously some of the biggest lessons, wins, insights, challenges that you've now had, and obviously how we can now obviously just take a little kind of snippet of that. And one big thing you said, and I'll paraphrase it because I can't remember exactly what it was, and I know that you said I can't find it now, but it was along the lines of like financial stability and safety has got nothing to do with the amount of money you have in the bank or the amount of coaching clients that you have, but it's got everything to do with the confidence and the trust in yourself, and now knowing who you are and the ability to be able to now know that you can make shit happen. And I think that's just such a beautiful summary of kind of what you've kind of communicated and articulated over the last 15 to 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, definitely, because wealth in the bank, it's going to get spent at the end of the day. So if we don't have the confidence and we don't have the ability to make more, at some point we're going to end up skint, right? So it's like wealth is all to do with how we regenerate that, how we continue to show up, how we can replace that, how we can make things happen when we need it to. And that's been the biggest thing for me. It's just been all about, right, how can I continue showing up? How can I be the best that I can be? How can I make my clients feel heard? How can I make them feel deserving? How can I make them feel good about themselves and valued? And it's been a real learning curve for me over the last 7 months, because again, that's how you guys have made me feel. So it's just basically mirroring that in a way, with my clients, to be the best that we can be. We also have to learn from the best as well, don't we? And so that's been a massive part of this journey for me too.
What's next for Mel? What does kind of success now look like, and what does that rich life now look like that we're working towards?
I never used to have the self-confidence or the self-belief that I could grow my business. I always just thought, I would compare myself on social media to other people that were within the coaching industry, and they would be like, we have a team of coaches. We have, like with the HBC, right? There's you and there's everybody else that's within the team that are all incredible. And I never thought that scaling my business or growing my business would be something that I would be capable of. I always sort of felt, oh, that's too scary, or I could never do that. I haven't got the time. And I think that was just me being scared. And having that self-doubt, which is strange considering all of the stuff that I've been able to achieve in the past. But maybe in my brain, I just thought, oh, it's too much. But now I do have the confidence and the self-belief to know that if I want to make that happen, then I can make it happen, that it is totally doable. And I might not know exactly how to do it right now, but I know that I have the backup of you guys to help me along the way when I need that help. I had a conversation with Troy not so long back about how to scale, what are the next steps, how do we make this happen? And so that is what I would absolutely love to do. I love what I do, but obviously we reach a certain point where we have a certain amount of ladies or people that we can work with, and we don't, I don't want that to be diluted because I want to work. I don't want the quality of what I do to be diluted. So there has to be a point where it's like, right, I need to take on another coach. I need to delegate some elements of what I do to other people. So that is the next step for me, that I would absolutely love, to bring on some more coaches and grow the business past a one-man band, because I love what I do and I want to help more people. The feedback I get from my clients, It's quite like we do it because we want to help people, but also it makes us feel fucking incredible, doesn't it? So it's like, it's such a great job that we have the ability to be able to do. So I just want to do more of it and help more people. But now that I see it's a possibility now, whereas before, if you'd have asked me this question 12 months ago, I wouldn't have had any clarity, no real direction, no real idea, and I wouldn't have wanted to say I wanted to scale my business because that goal would have seemed too big.
Absolutely love that. That's incredible. And again, so aligned to the work you've done on yourself and the momentum you've now built, and the confidence is evident side of things, and that opportunity to now be to see the possibility, which is absolutely huge. So to leave this podcast, I would love to know, what would you go back and say to that Mel that was sat in that hole for the amount of time that she was freezing to death and staying warm next to that Fijian bloke? What would she say? What would she go back and say to that Mel then at that time of her life, now knowing what she knows now?
I would say to myself, look, things might be a bit rubbish now, but they are going to get so much better. You just need to believe in yourself, even if nobody else does, even if a goal seems like it is too high, even if something feels like it's going to be a lot of effort, it is 100% going to pay off, and everything happens when it should. I think that we can always be so eager to rush things, like I want to reach this goal like right now, I want to do this, but as long as you keep being consistent and keep trying and keep working hard and obviously doing the best that you can, everything will happen when it should. I don't believe that emotionally or even, within myself, I would have been ready for this point in my life any sooner than I have been ready. So I think everything happens when it should. You just need to keep plugging away, believe in yourself, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, 100%. I after everything that I've been through over the last 4 years with shifting identities, becoming a mum, where I am right now couldn't have happened any sooner.
Absolutely love that. And final point, what does being a high performance coach mean to Melissa Haywood?
To me, it means being the leader that I know that I can be. It means making sure that I continue to show up. It means making sure that I do the best for myself, for my clients, and for my family, and reaching that potential that I know I'm capable of, and knowing the potential is there, not having that self-belief, like lack of self-belief that I used to have. So it's being the leader, showing up, and reaching that full potential that I know I've got.
I love that. Mel, thank you so much. I massively appreciate you. I have so much love for you. You drive me to be better. And hopefully, obviously, for those that have listened to this podcast, they'll be able to take some gold, some insight, and some incredible energy as well. So team, if you found this valuable, then I would absolutely love to know. And or if you know another coach that you think this would be valuable for them to be able to now get a little bit of energy, insight, and also a higher level of thinking for them to be able to show and see what's now possible, then I'd love for you to be able to go and share the episode. Mel, until next time, thank you so much and speak to you soon.
Thank you.